You are following rules right now that no one ever explained to you. Rules that don't exist in any law book, rules no one officially enforces, rules you never consciously agreed to. And yet, you feel them guiding your behavior with quiet precision. They tell you when to speak, when to stay silent, how to act, how to react, and how far you're allowed to go before something feels wrong. You don't notice them because they feel natural. But they are not natural. They are learned. They are ancient. And they are powerful. By the end of this story, you will see how invisible rules shape your life more deeply than written laws ever could, and why realizing this changes the way you move through the world. Invisible rules did not appear suddenly, and they were not consciously designed. They emerged slowly, shaped by pressure, danger, and repetition. Long before humans built cities or invented writing, survival depended entirely on social coordination. A lone human was vulnerable. A group, even a small one, was powerful. Over time, the brain learned that behavior acceptable to the group increased chances of survival, while behavior that caused tension or rejection increased risk. This learning did not stay on the surface. It became biology. Anthropological evidence shows that early human groups relied almost entirely on norms rather than force. There were no prisons, no police, no formal courts. Instead, behavior was guided by expectation. Everyone knew what was acceptable, even if no one ever explained it directly. Children learned by observation. Adults reinforced norms through subtle reactions: approval, disapproval, distance, silence. These reactions were enough. The human brain is extremely sensitive to social feedback, especially when that feedback threatens belonging. Neuroscience explains why this sensitivity is so deep. The amygdala, a brain structure involved in threat detection, responds not only to physical danger, but also to social signals. Facial expressions, tone of voice, body language. These cues are processed rapidly and emotionally. When a social norm is violated, the brain does not ask whether a law was broken. It asks whether safety is at risk. Stress hormones are released, attention narrows, and the body prepares for correction. This response happens automatically. You do not choose it. Over generations, these automatic responses became refined. Humans who sensed social danger early and adjusted quickly were more likely to remain inside the group. Those who ignored norms too often were more likely to be excluded. Evolution did not reward honesty, originality, or independence on their own. It rewarded adaptability, the ability to read the room, adjust behavior, and avoid standing out unnecessarily became a survival skill. Invisible rules are the modern expression of that skill. As societies grew, invisible rules became more layered. Different roles required different behaviors. Elders were treated differently than children, leaders differently than followers, outsiders differently than insiders. None of this needed explanation. The structure was felt. Over time, these patterns hardened into traditions and customs. What began as flexible adaptation slowly turned into expectation. And expectation, repeated long enough, becomes morality. This is the moment where invisible rules gain authority, when a norm stops being seen as a practical solution and starts being seen as the right way. Once that happens, questioning it feels wrong, not just risky. The emotional response shifts from fear to guilt and shame. Shame is especially powerful because it does not require punishment. It only requires awareness of how others might see you. Even when no one is present, the imagined audience remains. Psychologists describe this as the internalized observer. It is the mental representation of social judgment that lives inside your mind. It monitors behavior constantly. It corrects posture, tone, timing, and expression. It asks whether you are appropriate, acceptable, normal. Most of the time, you mistake this voice for your own. You call it personality, but it is largely social memory. In modern life, invisible rules have not disappeared. They have multiplied. You follow different rules at work, online, with family, with friends, and with strangers. Each environment has its own expectations, and you switch between them seamlessly. This flexibility feels normal, but it comes at a cost. Constant adjustment requires constant monitoring. The nervous system rarely rests. Public spaces offer clear examples. Elevators, queues, public transport. These environments function almost entirely on invisible rules. People instinctively maintain distance, avoid eye contact, face certain directions, and respect turn-taking. When someone breaks these rules, the reaction is immediate and emotional. Discomfort spreads through the group. No explanation is needed. The violation is felt, not analyzed. Social media intensified this mechanism by making feedback constant and ambiguous. Approval and rejection now arrive through numbers, silence, tone, or absence. There is rarely clear punishment, but the emotional effect is strong. People learn quickly what is acceptable and what is not. Opinions are adjusted. Language is softened or sharpened. Behavior shifts, often without conscious decision. The same ancient fear of exclusion operates beneath modern interfaces. What makes invisible rules especially powerful is that they often conflict with conscious values. A person may value honesty but choose silence, creativity but choose conformity, authenticity but choose safety. This is not hypocrisy. It is the nervous system prioritizing predictability over principle. The brain prefers known discomfort over unknown risk. At their best, invisible rules make cooperation possible. They allow strangers to trust each other, reduce conflict, and create shared meaning. At their worst, they suppress individuality, discourage questioning, and preserve outdated structures. The difference is not in the rule itself, but in awareness. Rules followed consciously remain tools. Rules followed unconsciously become limits. At some point, awareness begins to change the dynamic. The invisible rules do not disappear, but they lose their absolute authority. You start to notice the moment just before you comply automatically. That brief pause is important. It is the space where choice becomes possible. Not rebellion, not rejection of society, but evaluation. You begin to ask whether a rule serves connection, order, and mutual respect, or whether it exists only to preserve comfort and familiarity. Research in psychology shows that people who develop this kind of meta-awareness experience less internal conflict. They still feel discomfort when breaking a norm, but they no longer interpret that discomfort as danger. The nervous system reacts, but the mind understands why. This separation allows behavior to align more closely with values rather than fear. Growth does not require the absence of anxiety. It requires understanding its origin. Historically, meaningful change has always come from individuals who could see invisible rules clearly without being fully controlled by them. Cultural shifts did not begin with mass rebellion, but with quiet deviation. Someone spoke differently. Someone behaved differently. Someone refused to accept that this is how it has always been done, was a sufficient reason. At first, these deviations created tension. Later, they became new norms. Every culture evolves this way, not by destroying rules, but by updating them. This is the paradox of invisible rules. They both protect and restrict. They keep societies stable, but they also resist transformation. Without them, chaos emerges. With them, stagnation is possible. Balance is not found by choosing one side, but by learning to move consciously between them. Stability when it is needed. Change when it is necessary. The most important realization is that invisible rules are not truths. They are agreements. Agreements shaped by history, environment, fear, and necessity. Many of them once served a vital purpose. Some still do. Others remain only because they were never questioned. When you see this, obedience stops being automatic. It becomes intentional. Freedom, in this sense, is not the absence of rules. That has never existed for humans. Freedom is the ability to see the rules, understand their origin, and decide how much power they deserve over your actions. It is quiet, internal, and often invisible itself. No one applauds it. No one rewards it immediately, but it changes how you move through the world. And perhaps that is the deepest truth behind invisible rules. They control you most when you believe you are simply being yourself. The moment you recognize them, they no longer own you completely. They become part of the environment rather than the foundation of your identity. You still belong. You still cooperate. But you are no longer unaware. That awareness does not make life easier. It makes it clearer. And clarity, more than comfort, is what allows a human being to live deliberately rather than automatically.